I feel like Games Workshop is starting to sort of lose it. Hey there, this is Space Marine Steve from Play on Tabletop, and here at Hyperspace Hobbies. Welcome to another Master of the Chapter, and today we're going to start almost like a little mini-series about a very dramatic change that has taken place, and it all has to do with the new Arcs of Omen that's coming out, and it has to do with the balance datasheet. So if you're a Marine player, or if you're just a Warhammer player in general, things are changing, and they're changing quickly. There is a lot to kind of unpack, and like how many different changes that there actually are within this one datasheet. There's changes to like flyers, there's changes to Marines, there's like dramatic changes to Marines, but there's also changes to a bunch of other factions too, like in like we're all riding this points roller coaster right now where things are kind of going up and down and up and down and up and down, and it's drastically changing how at least the competitive way of playing the game is done, and that's with matched play that actually uses the tournament packages and the field manuals, etc., etc. The truth of it is there is some like internet panic going on that I think is actually a little bit unfounded, because I've been a Marine player for a really long time, and while I haven't won major events, and I don't usually do the meta chasing thing where I either hop armies or like winning that first place isn't important to me, but playing well with Space Marines is. And so I've been playing them no matter whether they're good or whether they're bad for a really long time. I can say like with some confidence that every time one of these major changes takes place, I have a fairly decent hand on the pulse of what will and won't be strong. And sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I'm a little offbeat with it. But when it comes to Marines, I'm usually fairly correct. When the last major change happens, where this is actually being compared to, because the last huge change that took place for Space Marines was back in 8th edition. And if you weren't around for 8th edition, this is basically what happened. Right about the end of the edition, what took place is they dropped a brand new Space Marine book. It came out with a bunch of supplements, which what we have now, and they were the best. Like, without question, everyone was playing Space Marines. They were the best books, no matter what, right? And almost across the board, all of them had varying power levels, but they were awesome no matter what. In particular, anything that has super doctrine, so that ability that takes place during a particular doctrine, like when it's active, that had one in the Devastator doctrine did really, really, really well. And those were Iron Hands and Imperial Fists. And Iron Hands in particular, because their super doctrine is like, I'm going to go with hella awesome. You basically always count as remaining stationary, which means infantry always hit on 3s with their heavy weapons. And then on top of that, they get to reroll 1s for the heavy weapons. So captains become superfluous, and you're just like, well, I just run tech Marines and lieutenants to give myself other rerolls, etc., etc. Ultimately, what took place here is they started to dominate, and to the point where you would go like, well, I played 2 turns and I played an Iron Hands Air Force that rocked like 3 planes plus a couple dreadnoughts, and they would just like pin you right into your deployment zone and just shoot you to death. And honestly, that was sort of lame, like really lame. I actually really criticized that era of Space Marine competitive play anyways, because I didn't like what they actually did to Marines there. Like, yes, they were super powerful, but they were so powerful that everybody played them. With that being said, I've seen a lot of comparisons online about like, oh, this will just be like that, right? And there's a lot of changes that maybe support that kind of thinking. However, I think that there is something very, very different about the landscape of the game from when that took place back at the end of 8th edition to here in 9th edition, when we're beginning the Arcs of Omen season of match play, and I think that there's a huge difference, and I think that huge difference is context. Back then, we had a book that outclassed everybody. Like, we had more AP, we had more shots, we had better rules, cheaper guys. And while now we have gotten back some of those things, like we have like free upgrades and stuff like that. Okay, great, we have free upgrades, cool. But ultimately, like, that doesn't actually fix the problem, and the problem is the ecosystem. Like right now, like Space Marines, They don't have the staying power, even if we've gotten all this extra volume. And every Space Marine list that I've seen has gone up, estimate like 200 points, give or take. But that doesn't fix the ecosystem. Everybody else is still rocking AP3, AP-4 weapons. There's a lot of lists that can sling mortal wounds like nobody's business, all of which Space Marines don't really have an answer for. So it doesn't matter, right? Like, yes, we hit harder. Okay, so we hit a little harder. But there's plenty of armies that hit just as hard, if not harder. So there's a lot of panic going on around what these changes are going to actually accomplish in the meta. But I say, like, are Space Marines better? Are they going to dominate? No, I don't think so. Are they good? I think they're better. Yeah. The loss of Armor of Contempt is big, really big, and it changes the way that we're going to play. But I am going to answer over the next maybe like 30 days, so up to LVO and a little bit beyond. I am going to answer, are Space Marines actually better with this data slate? So if you want to see what that's about, if you want to hear what that's like, I'm going to invite a bunch of guests. I know Ian is going to come over actually later today. Ian is going to come over later today, and we're going to film one where we talk about some of the most dramatic changes. We can go over that and what that means and what kind of impact that's going to actually have moving forward. And then I also have a great tournament player. His name is Kazra, and he's going to come in into the studio and join me in a very quick discussion all about Space Marines and how they're going to build to what that quote broken is that we all hear to. So you can know, either if you're a Space Marine player, what to look for if you're going to tournaments. If you're not a Space Marine player, what you can look for when you're going to tournaments, and what you can build towards or build to defend yourself against. I don't think in any case that the sky is falling. I don't think that this is too extreme, and I don't think that this is enough either. So that is my prediction. I think that much like when Armor of Contempt came in, it's going to move the needle for some, but not all. There's too many factions in Space Marines to be like, I'm going to make Space Marines better. This update made Iron Hands better. It didn't do it for White Scars. It didn't do it for Space Wolves. It made Iron Hands better. Much like Armor of Contempt made things like Blood Angels better. So join us here. Make sure you like, subscribe, get notified, and all of that good stuff, because I'm going to have all kinds of guests in here to talk about these new changes, updates, and what you can really expect when you step out looking to play or play against Space Marines. This is Space Marine Steve signing off. Check you later.